Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and get started. For everyone, you chose Authentically Processing Information Strategy 3. So let me pop over to this side. So what does that mean, authentically processing information? A lot of what we're going to look at today is how students are relating their learning to either their own experiences or previously things learned, and how they can process that information in an organized way. A couple of quotes we used as a groundwork is from Zaretta Hammond's book. First one, to do effective information processing, students have to have a way to turn and earn information into usable knowledge. And cognitive routines are the basic mental maneuvers the learner uses for information processing, especially when doing higher order thinking and creative problem solving. Furthermore, I'm going to give you guys a second just to take a quick look to read this quote on the screen. This can give you a couple ideas of what we're going to talk about today. So I'll give you just a minute so I'm not reading to you guys the whole time. So this quote is really touching on looking at using different visuals, flowcharts, graphic organizers, which we're going to show you some cool digital tools that you can use with your students to hopefully help process this information authentically.
And we'd like to bring up an idea here from Zaretta Hammond and connecting to our CRE connections, that studies have shown that students will remember 60% of what they just learned within 20 minutes of when they learned it. 24 hours later, that drops significantly, but if they get some additional practice within 24 hours, their memory goes up way beyond what it was just 20 minutes after the initial learning. So it's important to activate your brain and give those kids some practice with something that they learned as soon as you can. Cool, so this is your opportunity to break out on your own if you want to work independently. There are resources linked on slide 76, and all of these slides from where we are now down to 76 have links to the different tools that we'll be using. If you're independent, you'll just work your way through those slides, choose one or more of the tools that are listed, and begin to create a lesson that you'll be able to use in your classroom. If you're going to be following along with us, we'll be demonstrating these pieces for you, and then give you time to break out on your own to work on developing a lesson for use with these tools. In either case, please return back to this room or to the main room at 9:15.
We'll call everybody in back, but 9:15 is the main room.
9:15 will go back to the main room. All right. Cool, so we're gonna start off with Edpuzzle Live, and I'd like to bring that up real quickly. That's the one tool I forgot to load up ahead of time. Yep, I will do that. Here we go. All right. So Edpuzzle Live. Edpuzzle is a tool that allows you to provide video content that students can interact with at different points. What I'd like to show you at this point is that if you're assigning this video, and up here under assign, I can go in and choose the group that I'm sending it to when I'm assigning it or just playing it. I can show this as live. Where's my live mode? Great. And what I get in live mode is the opportunity to present the video at the front of the class. And just like in Pear Deck, the students will only see what I'm showing them on the screen. They won't see that until the question point comes up. And I'm gonna go ahead and just play this 41-second video. And if you were connected to this as part of my class, you would be seeing the question of, have you ever seen a fake image online? And you'd be given a short constructed response to respond to that. And then as the teacher, if you wanted to engage in a conversation at this point, or if you needed to rewatch that section, you could do that. But to go on to the next one, you just click on continue. Here are the responses. We don't have any because you're not in my class. Nice example of a multiple choice. What do you use for passwords? Hopefully you're using strong passwords and having a conversation with your kids about something like that. Continue on to the next one. No responses. And this is not a response. This is just an opportunity to remind you guys to reach out to your digital coach if you'd like some help with digital citizenship. And this video came from commonsense.org. Lots of resources there. So Edpuzzle Live is a little bit like Pear Deck, but only for video. And it gives you an opportunity to engage your students in the classroom, and they can interact with the content from the Chromebooks at their desk. They don't see the video on the Chromebook. They see that in the presentation up at the front. And you're in total control. Speaking of total control. Is it you next or is that me next? That's me next. Cool, all right. Another tool that we're looking at is Canva. And I want to point out that Canva is directly linked into Schoology. So for those of you in secondary schools that are using Canva, again, I'm gonna grab the control here for just a second. I'm going to present this one instead. Here we go. Awesome. So in Canva, in Schoology, there are two ways to access Canva. The first way that you might notice is when you're in your course and you're adding materials, there's a link directly for Canva right there. All that does though is it just takes you over to Canva. It doesn't actually add anything for the students to use. But if you check down here when you're doing an assignment, I did assessment, I think I need to go back and, nope, I did the assignment, there we go. If you insert content, a little bit like the old way to do Google Drive was down here, if you select on insert content, then you get Canva for Education again. This is where you can go to Canva and actually select a template of a beginning of an idea in Canva that you want your students to have their own copy of. So again, that's found by starting an assignment and inserting content, and you'll find Canva for Education is in that content. Takes me over to Canva and I can choose any of these. You can't see it because it's actually a different layer on my screen, but I'm now seeing all of my designs in Canva. I can choose one of those as a template that gets assigned to the kids. Canva is, yes, also available through Google Classroom. I don't have the instructions for that. There's the piece that you'll see in Schoology when you get there. But yes, it does also connect with Google Classroom.
I think currently with Google Classroom, I'm not sure, I have to look at it. They have add-ons. Google Classroom has created add-ons and they can go insert it within your Google Classroom. I think currently with Canva, though, it links outside. So you can put a link in your Google Classroom and then the kid would click it and then go to a new tab to be in Canva, rather than it being embedded within Google Classroom itself. I have to double check though, because Google is adding different add-ons of other apps to the app smashing. So that may be one that they've added. I haven't looked at Canva specifically.
I'm not sure if any of the add-ons for Classroom have been whitelisted yet by the district, so you can always just add a link to Canva for where you want people to end up. So that's how you would get to Canva using Schoology. The next one is Seesaw.
Awesome, yeah, so we know that we have both secondary and primary teachers in this session, so we're trying to touch on both platforms that you guys may be using within your classrooms. Mainly primary is Seesaw, and some activities here are looking at how students are connecting that information, like we said, to something they had either previously learned or they reflect on it again later on in the week. So these are all linked within the presentation, so you can see examples. And I always forget that I'm clicking the thing there. So you can see examples of the session. So let me show you this one here. So this activity, my weekly connections, is just a way you could assign this at the beginning of the week and add your date. Say this is a template, you can just edit this for yourself. But at the end of each week, they talk about what was their favorite thing they learned this week, something I learned new, how I helped someone. So just ways to reflect on the learning that they've already processed. So revisiting that learning, so it's not a one-time thing that these students are accessing. Another example, there's a whole lot more within Seesaw itself, but another example in this slide deck that you can use within Seesaw is Stick It. So this is a quick, like an end of lesson thing you can do. So what stuck with you today of your learning, and what connections can you make from last week? These templates, if you want them, already have the little speaker notes. So if you're looking for primary students to use this, they can record video recordings within Seesaw, they can do voice notes within Seesaw. So they're still able to access this and reflect on their learning. And there's just one for each day, so you don't have to assign it once. You can do this at the end of each day. So just some ideas of ways that these platforms can try to help connect that learning that students have already had. There's a math journal here as well that can be used with your students to try to connect that learning. So again, just touching on ideas that you can use within Seesaw. This is just like a starting point. You're welcome to use these templates. You're welcome to explore more. But yeah, like I said, just try to connect, a way to connect that learning to either what they've already learned earlier in the week, something they've already learned, or their background knowledge. This could also be, how does this connect to something at home that you've done before? How does this connect to your family? Some way to connect the learning either to their own experiences or some knowledge they've already learned either previously in the week or maybe from another outlet. Lost my presenter mode thing. There it is. Okay.
All right, graphic organizers. Graphic organizers are a great way to visually organize information. Kids need to be able to sort, they need to be able to compare, they need to be able to contrast what things are similar, what things are different. They need to organize their content that way. They can also do, for example, in the lower left corner, you can see a flow chart. So that's sequential thinking right there. We've got the typical Venn diagram where you've got two sets of objects and there's an area where they overlap each other. Great ideas for students to be able to graphically organize, visually see what they're working on. And There are a couple of tools that are linked there. One is the traditional Google Drawings. And I'm not going to do too much with Google Drawings, but this brings you to a list of templates that are already done in Google Drawing, which show you Venn diagrams, know what you learned, timelines, evaluations, cause and effect. There's a bunch of them in there. Take a look at those. Some of those are very helpful. They all work in what are called Google Drawings. And then the other option that's linked directly here on this one is graphic organizers available in Canva. And this is just the search term. You go to Canva and you search for graphic organizers, and there are tons of them. Really high quality ones in here, easy to edit. If you find one that looks like it's something but it's not the right content, that's okay, because you can go in and edit any of the text that's there. It's all layered so that you can edit and revise it to be anything you want it to be. That's kind of a nice opportunity for me to segue then on the next slide. The reason that we're talking about Canva so much, and a new tool probably to you called canvas.apps.chrome. This is just part of the Chrome operating system and the Chrome browser. It's a better drawing tool than you'll have in Google Drawing. Google Drawing is pretty basic. You can do shapes. It does allow you to insert some things, but Google Canvas is a better tool for actually doodling with. And I'd like to play a quick video. So I'm going to take over again. One tab. Here we go. I'm going to play just a part of this video. This is a person who's an advocate for doodling. I'm going to let her explain why it's so important.
Real deal. Here's what I believe. I think that our culture is so intensely focused on verbal information that we're almost blinded to the value of doodling. And I'm not comfortable with that. And so because of that belief that I think needs to be burst, I'm here to send us all hurtling back to the truth. And here's the truth. Doodling is an incredibly powerful tool. And it is a tool that we need to remember and to relearn. So here's a new definition for doodling. And I hope there's someone in here from the Oxford English Dictionary, because I want to talk to you later. Here's the real definition. Doodling is really to make spontaneous marks to help yourself think. That is why millions of people doodle. Here's another interesting truth about the doodle. People who doodle, when they're exposed to verbal information, retain more of that information than their non-doodling counterparts. We think doodling is something you do when you lose focus, but in reality, it is a preemptive measure to stop you from losing focus. Additionally, it has a profound effect on creative problem solving and deep information processing. There are 4 ways that learners intake information so that they can make decisions. They are visual, auditory, reading and writing, and kinesthetic. Now, in order for us to really chew on information and do something with it, we have to engage at least 2 of those modalities, or we have to engage one of those modalities coupled with an emotional experience. The incredible contribution of the doodle is that it engages all 4 learning modalities simultaneously with the possibility of an emotional experience. That is a pretty solid contribution for a behavior equated with doing nothing. This is so nerdy, but this made me cry when I discovered this. So they did anthropological research into the unfolding of artistic activity in children, and they found that across space and time, all children exhibit the same evolution in visual logic as they grow. In other words, they have a shared and growing complexity in visual language that happens in a predictable order. And I think that is incredible. I think that means doodling is native to us, and we simply are denying ourselves that instinct.
So that's our advocate for doodling. And the tools that we are looking at real quickly are Canva and Google Canvas. I'm going to go ahead and just show you real quickly Google Canvas. Oh, you took it over?
Yeah, sorry.
It's all right, here. I'll take over. All right. So Google Canvas, if you have never used it before, it's as simple as clicking on Start a New Canvas. And what you have on the along the left side, you've got a color wheel at the top. You've got a thickness on below that for how thick your brush is. And then you've got a number of brushes down here: pencil, fine pen, marker, chalk. This is kind of like a charcoal. It does a nice sort of line like that, and an eraser. That may seem really simple, but these tools are easier and better to use as drawing tools than the ones that you get in Google Drawing. The other thing that you've got are layers, which you don't have in Google Drawing. So you can add additional layers so that you're working on one layer and a different layer without interrupting the content that's on there. So I can draw on one layer and erase something on a different layer that doesn't erase the first layer. You can switch which layer you're looking at. Right now I can turn layers on and off. I can add layers. Now I've got another layer on top, and I'll grab another mark here, add a different color, super quick. Here we go. And when I'm using my eraser, I'm only erasing on the layer that I'm on. I'm not erasing something on a different layer. So it gives you a vast amount of power that you don't have in Google Drawing. And then on this one, we're working with dots to get this more where you're actually logged into this tool, and it's not just device level at this point. But you can share this image and download it, or you can share it. And what the sharing does is it just copies this so that you can paste it someplace else if they're trying to share it with somebody. And then the little house here brings you back to the beginning. This is device level, not user level, which a lot of tools are in Google. We're trying to get that straightened out so it's actually signed in. More functional. Okay, then real quickly on Canva, sorry, when you're creating something in Canva, by the way, here's just a whiteboard. Some people would like to have just a plain whiteboard that they can draw on. If you're not seeing, and it's not showing me the tools on this slide, here we go. There we go. If you don't see the opportunity on the left, the tool there to draw with, you'll find it under the More, and then under the Create Something New section, there's a Draw Beta, and that just gives you the functional tools to, come on. Oh, it can be used in a whiteboard. How about that? I learned something new today. Let's go back home. One of my own. That's another whiteboard. It's not going to work there either. Here's a menu for my granddaughter so she can choose what she wants to eat. Let me share this tab. There we go. Now I've selected draw. I get my different pens, my colors, size, and even a transparency. So when I'm drawing up here, I can change this to be translucent a little bit, still see what's behind it. Very easy tool to use. The nice thing about using Canva is that you can also go back to an element and add something to the element, like another picture. Drop something in and add an additional option for doodling by being able to add pictures directly to what you're doing. Now let's stop editing.
Awesome. Okay, so I am going to talk about how to use Pear Deck, and I'm gonna ask you guys to be a little bit involved in this one. So if you never used Pear Deck in your classroom, and do you mind putting joinpd.com in the chat?
Sure. Is this the right code?
We are gonna interact with this Pear Deck, and I want you just to think as we go through it, how this is authentically processing or helping students authentically process information. So for this one, we're gonna look at the Pythagorean theorem, which is, if you don't wanna, I'm not gonna ask you to actually do the math. If you want to, go for it, but if you don't want to, that's fine. I just wanted you to more think of what we're asking students within this. So if you guys will open a new tab and go to joinpd.com, and Matthew is putting that link in the chat as well. It's just joinpd.com. And then you're gonna type in the join code, which is right here. It's PXTYRP. So you type those letters within the joinpd.com, and it will,
Oh, sorry,
yeah.
I got that messed up, that's wrong.
So just joinpd.com, and then and type in that code, and then that will take you into the slide that we're gonna work on today. So I'm gonna actually present that for us.
There we go. That should work a little better.
So when you get in, it should look like this, and that code is right here in the corner.
Doesn't put a code there.
4 students, I have 4 people in here.
Automatic.
If you've never used Pear Deck too, as I go through, I'll just point out a couple things. You can see at the bottom, I can see I have certain people joining. I see how many people are there, so I see 5 students are joined. So as your students are getting into something like this, you can also see how engaged your students are if they're participating without having to like walk around to every computer and everything. The code will stay in the corner as well, so if students are joining a little bit later, they can look up there and see. But like I said, I just wanted to use this Pear Deck example to walk through and have you guys think of how this is helping students authentically process information. So we're gonna talk about, this is a sample lesson, and what I'm doing on my screen and navigating should then prompt you on your screen and move you through as I'm going through. So say, today we're talking about the Pythagorean theorem, and for you guys, this wouldn't be for students, but these are the questions that I want you guys to think about as we walk through, and I'd love for you guys, a couple of you, to just, when we're done, to share out maybe ways that you saw this happening within this Pear Deck. So what role of questioning is eliciting the authentically processing information? How does the Pear Deck mediate the process of information? And what evidence is there in the student responses of authentically processing information? So what is the questioning you're seeing with the questioning? What is the Pear Deck specifically doing to help that process? And then what evidence do you see within the students' responses within here? All right, so here's the beginning of the lesson. So I'm asking students, have you had the chance to fly or travel on a plane? Now you should see, it says yellow star, I'm not sure if it actually gave you yellow star, I meant to edit that. You should be able to click and drag a star over either yes or no. I see some people already doing that. And then right now you can't see responses because I have the control on my end. I'm gonna click show responses here. And then you can start to see where people's, I'm gonna show you the overlay. So this is the overlay view. You can start to see people and their responses. So as a class, now I'm reflecting on it, right, of my previous experience. And as a class, I can see where my classmates are as well with this specific prompt. And then the next piece. Where did you go? So a lot of you guys put the yes on the star. Same thing, this one's a drag activity. So the pin, you know, drag, where did you go? Put the pin on the country you have traveled to. And if it's somewhere in the United States, you have someone put it somewhere, wherever on the map in the US. So again, this is where you're having students interact with this. See a pin over here on the West Coast, some pins there. Well, the yellow's a little bit tricky to see with this. Another cool thing, just to show you a quick feature with Pear Deck, so you have students that are wanting to show all these different things. You can also give a 30-second warning that will pop up on their screen saying, hey guys, you have 30 seconds to put your pin where it is. and then we're gonna move on, and then you can actually lock their screen. I'm gonna cut this a little bit shorter than 30 seconds for our example today. But then I can actually lock the screen. So on your screen, you should be seeing where it says no more responses allowed. So then you can re-engage students back into the instruction that you're doing within the classroom. Awesome, okay. So then you have students work on a math problem. Again, you don't have to do this. I just wanted to kind of show you this example. So you have the word problem on the side of a real life example. The plane takes off, is being tracked by a control tower. The radar shows that the plane is at a line of a slight distance of 2 miles, which coordinates with the horizontal line of 1.323 miles. Look at the picture. So you use the picture as the example on the side, and then the students are solving the problem and having to explain. It's just a writing response. So students have an example and have to kind of use the caret here since this is a math one to show it's squared. But you'd give students time to then work through this and then explain their thinking. And if you could show responses here, I'm not asking you guys to put anything in here. So I could put show responses, and then you would have a list right here of showing people's explanations if you wanted to. Different people's explanations and what they're thinking is as they're typing. And you notice it's anonymous, so it's not showing a name, but then you can just kind of start seeing and comparing strategies. And I probably wouldn't do it until after I gave students time to work on this. Okay, again, be thinking about how this is relating to that authentically processing information. The next slide is giving students an example of someone else's answer. They're having to look through their work and they're having to say, is she right or is she not? So right now, you guys, I know you didn't do it or not, but you can just drag the thumbs up or drag the thumbs down, and you can put, is she right or is she not right? And you can show, the class can be looking at, is Rita right or is she not right? You can show examples so people can see what everybody thinks as they move through here. So again, I'm engaging my students.
It's the wrong spelling for blade. That's
Awesome, okay. So again, you can do the countdown here again. And then the next one is just having you explain. So it's then saying, okay, you said she was wrong, explain to me why. And just like I said before, you can show the responses as they come up. It's a great opportunity for students to then compare these responses. And I have some people that are already on it here. And again, it's anonymous. Awesome. Okay, so again, I just want to set an example. You don't have to do any math this early in the morning. Some of you guys are on it. That's great. But I wanted you, and if anybody, I'd love to hear these guiding questions that we started with in the beginning. So if anybody would like to share either through the chat or just by unmuting, any of these questions. So where do you see Pear Deck assisting with authentically processing information? What type of questioning do we use to explicitly target that? And then any kind of student responses that can kind of help process that information.
I think one advantage of using Pear Deck in this fashion is making sure that there is accountability in terms of students' responses and not just kids sitting there waiting for the right answer to be shared.
Yeah, exactly. You get every student an opportunity to respond without seeing everybody, but everybody's having to respond because you can see everybody at the same time. Cool, you have Amy, keep students together to focus on the same question at hand. Anonymous feature helps elicit participation. Naturally allows wait time. Yeah, I like that one. Students take off and navigate to other topic sites. Yeah, that's where you might have to, Kate, you might have to like integrate different, like using like Land School and stuff to help navigate that if you need. And get a chance, Julia, to see misconceptions. Awesome. Did anybody notice what type of questioning was at the very beginning, before the lesson started, to try to elicit to authentically process that information? What was targeted specifically? So it was. Oops, far away. So thinking about like here, when you guys responded to, have you ever traveled on a plane before? And then also doing this one, where did you travel? What was the point of doing that in the whole lesson? That had nothing to do with the Pythagorean theorem, but what was the point of inserting that type of content into the lesson?
It's a good idea to start with a question everybody can respond to, and
Yeah, everybody has a chance to connect to it, real world connections. It's just talking to a different point about making homework more engaging, yeah. So trying to make a connection before you're even starting the lesson, right? So you have students in there, and a plane flight might not be the best example because you might have students that have never been on a plane, but something in your classroom that students can easily relate to then get them engaged in the topic. I mean, that had nothing to do specifically with the Pythagorean theorem, but it made it real world, and then they can connect to maybe an experience that they've already had. So using Pear Deck and then specific questioning, not just using Pear Deck in general, but also being strategic with how you're using Pear Deck and the questioning you're using within the tool.
One way to activate that schema and connect to a real live experience for the kids, if they are a student that has not been on a plane, and remarkably quite a few kids have not been on planes, you could say, if you could go on a plane flight to someplace, and the same question, if you've gone somewhere, where would you go? You can also ask, where would you like to go on a plane? Then they can choose something of their own. All right, so we do want you to know that there is a slide for additional resources. We're about at that point where you're going to be working on your own now with some of these tools to create a lesson that will help students authentically process information. And on the next slide, at 9:15, we would like you to return to the main room. Some of you already left that open as a tab, that's smart. If not, the link for the main room is there. And we will be hanging out here in the breakout for a while. And we'll see everybody back in the main room in about 17 minutes.
And I'll give you guys a couple minutes warning if you're working on something in another tab and not paying attention to the time. I'll give you like a 2-minute warning just to bring us back into our call, and then put the link in the chat so you can get over there. So no worries if you're kind of not paying exact attention to the time. We can handle that and let you guys know.
Thank you. Stop recording.
Brittany, I have a question for you.
Yes.
I used Pear Deck a couple times, but it was a long time. It was like pre-COVID.
Uh-huh.
If I have a